So hello everyone. Good evening to all of you. Hackslash Developers Club and DSC NIT Patna welcomes you all to the very first session of the Cloud Studies End. So Cloud Computing 101. So this is Paritosh Kumar, DSC NIT Patna Cloud Department Lead. So leaping forward, let's get started and see what's the agenda for today. So today we will be covering these topics, starting out with the very obvious one, what is cloud computing? And we will see the next definition of cloud computing and its 5 essential characteristics. After that, we will go through a little back in the history and see how cloud computing came into picture. We will only cover the evolution of servers from a business perspective, and we will take a very quick recap. And next, we will then see what is the need of cloud computing, and we will also see the various advantages. So we will cover these topics in deep, and during the whole session, I will also tell you various terminologies time to time. So, and with these topics, I think we will be concluding the today's session. And regarding the doubts, I have already told you that you can post your queries in the chat box and as well as raise your hand. So this was agenda for the today's session, and next section we would be covering the cloud service model and the deployment model as this stated in the next definition of cloud computing that you would see just now. So without any further delay, let's jump into it. So we have all experienced the cloud computing at some instant of time. Some of the popular cloud services like Gmail, you all have an email account there, and we are using it day to day, and we are still using right now MS Teams. So what is cloud computing exactly? So the answer to this question is not definite. Actually, there were many definitions given by different IT professionals from time to time because this field was emerging. And so the definition was varying from time to time, and none of them were that much satisfactory even then. But then in September 2011, a final version of the NIST, which stands for National Institute of Standards and Technology. So that has given a definition of cloud computing, and that has been well accepted across the IT industry since then. And this definition, which was given in 2011, it is still relevant to many extents in the present day. So let's see the definition part. So it defines cloud computing as cloud computing is a model for enabling ubiquitous, convenient, on-demand network access to a shared pool of configurable computing resources like networks, servers, storage, applications, and services that can be rapidly provisioned and released with the minimal management effort or the service provider interaction. So that's actually a big line with lots of terms here that you might not be familiar with. That's because the NIST definition is a very comprehensive description of all the essential qualities cloud computing has. That's why it is like this. So we will just try to understand this very definition in another ways. But before moving to that, just go through, let's get familiar with some of the terms like remote. So you all know what remote means, like far away or not in just front of you. Basically, we are just interacting remotely. You are sitting on your home and attending this session. So we are communicating remotely. So that's remote. And next term is provisioning. So provisioning, just remember the term associated allocation. So provisioning is just the allocation of the cloud-based IT resources to the users or a customer or client. So these are the two terms, and another term that we will use frequently is scaling and elasticity. So elasticity we will discuss after we discuss scaling in deep. Or scaling part, just a quick overview. It is increasing or decreasing the IT resources as per the demand. as to meet the changing demands in the production or whatever be the scenario. So now let's see the next part. So if you have ever heard about distributed computing, so which is basically when multiple or many computers are networked together and then they share the data or share the resources whenever required among them. And then they complete the workload that has been assigned to them. So we can say that cloud computing is also a specialized form or distributed computing only. And why we are saying that? Because if we take distributed computing and then just add few more functionalities to it, like remote provisioning. So in cloud, what we do is basically we will be seeing the provisioning part today. So and mostly we have to provision the IT resources. So we just talk about remote. So what happens is that in a typical IT infrastructure, there are data centers. So they have to be present just at the data center physically, and they have to configure all those on that on site only. But with the cloud, we have this remote flexibility that even are sitting at home and we can configure a server at America or any place where the data center is there by the cloud service provider. So that is the remote provisioning facility. And another term is scalable and major IT resource. So major IT resource is for like, so you are, if you are allocating or taking any IT resources from any cloud provider, then you will be charged as well. So cloud provider has to provide you a bill. So they have to measure how much time you have taken this IT resources, and accordingly your bill will be made after a month. And this is about the major part. And scalable is, we will come to this at later again, but scalable basically means that like if you have a simple desktop, but you find that after 2 years, your desktop or hardware configuration is not meeting the demand that the workload that you are performing. Like you have purchased a laptop with a 1 GB graphics card. And after 2 years, you thought that you will be doing a graphic design kind of workload, and then graphics card is not that much powerful. So you have to upgrade your laptop. So similarly here in the case of cloud, or we have whenever we have to upgrade anything. So if it was our case, we have to purchase a new laptop, or if it were a desktop, we have to upgrade it, right? But in the cloud, what we can do is we can simply release that resource, previous resource, and provision the new one. So our old resource, if we were at the home upgrading our stuff, then our old resource would be underutilized or not utilized anymore. But in the cloud, that resource will be released and that resource will be used by some other people, and you just only pay for what you use. That's a very big advantage of cloud. So that's a basic definition. We can also see about what cloud computing is. So in general, we can say that cloud computing is just a paradigm where we can enable the network access to a scalable and elastic pool of IT resources. And one thing more is that these IT resources, like if we have to configure our own data center or our own desktop environment, we have to go to the shop and purchase all the hardware configuration and parts and then assemble it ourselves. But here, what happens in the cloud, all things are automated. We just have to select the configuration and it will be provisioned for us. So there has to be some self-service provisioning service that is being managed by cloud service providers. We don't have to care about that. So that's another point I have to add. And next, if any of you like still having the confusion regarding the definition. So don't worry, after the end of the session, you will get a clear picture. So for now, you can remember the simple definition like cloud computing is an on-demand delivery of IT resources. So you have to configure or provision the IT resources for yourself, and that is on demand. That is anytime you can provision. You can say to CSP, or even not saying, just go to their console or the interface that they provide and provision their resources. So that is on demand anytime. And through a cloud service platform. So platform is basically if you have heard about AWS, yeah, Azure or GCP. So they have provided various interfaces to interact with their cloud service. And the most common platform is the web client, that is the web portal. And some CSPs also have the mobile applications, and most of them have the CLI. That is the command line interface. So there are various interfaces that they provide using which we can provision the IT resources. And then this is the most important thing, that is the network. That is, we have to be connected to that network so that we can access. And this, for our case, the network is the internet. And in next session, we will also see the deployment models like public cloud, private cloud, and hybrid cloud. Then you will also get this networking, this part just more clear. But for now, just think of it like you have to have the internet enabled. And then the pricing part, that is pay as you go model. That is, you have to pay what you consume. So basically, this is what you can keep in mind for this session. And so, yeah, one thing more, the NIST definition that we talked about in the last, the reference link is here. And it also covers 5 essential cloud characteristics, 3 service model, and 4 deployment models. And these 5 characteristics we are going to see in this session, and the service model and deployment model we are going to see in the next session. But before that, let's have a quick recap about the evolution part, only regarding the servers evolution. And after that, we will see what are the 5 those essential characteristics. So that's the part 1. Now we will move to the evolution of cloud computing and that evolution of server. So when we talk about the history of cloud computing, actually, so it dates back to ages. Even when particularly when the IT infrastructure was started to be rented to some clients. That's from where this whole evolution has started. So at the earlier times, we have the dedicated servers. We note that we are only going to talk about the evolution of server in this session because of the time constraint. So we have the dedicated server. So what is dedicated server? So dedicated server is just a physical machine that is dedicated to a single customer. What it means is that, let's say one company is holding a data center and you are the client. You go to that company and ask, I need a machine so that I can run my web application or any workload. And so you are the single customer and they will configure a full physical machine or a bare metal server for you only. And no other client will have access to that server. And that's about the dedicated server. And that too, I'm going 1, 2, 3, 4 in a chronological order, like dedicated server when there was no concept of virtualization. So you have to run a single application there. And so if you have multiple workloads, you have to provision multiple such servers and your cost is going to be increased. And also your maintenance is going to be increased, and you have to operate as well. So, and then the next part comes is the virtual private server. So what happens virtual private server? it started when the concept of virtualization came into picture. So we will see the virtualization as well after a while, but just it came into picture after virtualization. And then what happens is that the same customer who provision a dedicated server, they installed a software that can virtualize their physical machine, so that now on their one physical machine they can create multiple virtual machine. That you might have heard about VM, that is virtual machine. So that is only related to virtual private server. So here the advantage that the client got was that they are able to run multiple workloads on the same one dedicated server that they had provisioned. So they don't have to provision multiple servers for different workloads. So the underutilization of resources, that was one of the problem in the dedicated server, was solved. But still there were many problems, and there were many advancement in the compute as well. You will learn about containerization and functions, serverless functions as well, when you go deeper into this domain. So next, moving forward, the said hosting got started, and what happened in this case was that there was a one physical machine. So the only difference between virtual private server and the shared hosting is that now the one single client configures this one physical machine, then run their software, that is a virtual hypervisor software, and create multiple virtual machines. And then they use this virtual machine for their own purpose. But in the shared hosting, this virtual machine is being assigned, or this virtual machine is being rented to different individual or customers. So that is share hosting. So one physical machine, but multiple customers are leveraging it using the virtual machine concept. And so the advantage here was that due to the multiple customers being utilizing the resources, it was cheaper. So people used to go for the share hosting most of the time, but it comes with a risk of security. So that is one issue, but for the cheap pricing part, it is a lot cheaper. So another thing is that the cloud hosting. So in the cloud hosting, what happens is that actually cloud hosting, you have to know about resource pooling as well. So what happens in resource pooling, we will see, but for just quick overview, we have the multiple IT resources, and we just pool those IT resources into a single logical unit. So we have different physical units, and we pool those, that is combine those into a single logical unit. In the virtualization, we have a single physical machine or the physical hardware, and we split it into different logical units. So just reverse, both are in very high level overview, we can say both are reverse. So that resource pooling concept was emerging, and then the cloud, it boosted the cloud hosting. And so the cloud service providers configure their environments and pooled all the resources, and then they provided and then they first of all make a logical unit, and then abstracted this logical unit to the multiple customers according to their uh, according to them only. And so what's the advantage between shared hosting and cloud hosting is that since there is a concept of resource pooling, so multiple IT resources are being pooled, so the pricing even goes much cheaper than the shared hosting. And so that's why cloud hosting just bloom, and it is being preferred nowadays as well. So it is, and cloud hosting is scalable as well. It is resource pooling because we have multiple physical resource, and it is secure, definitely secure, but definitely there is a risk of risk associated since there are multiple tenants. So that's about the evolution of server in a very high level overview. And then we will see the cloud characteristics. So if any of you have any doubts, I will see in the chat box. just for a minute. Okay, so meaning of pooling is just combining. So I will come to resource pooling in the cloud characteristics part. So just wait for that. Any more question related to the last two sections? So I hope everything is at least you are getting an intuition little bit. So don't worry, you will get a very good clear picture about all these things. Just stick to the end. So next we have the cloud characteristics, right? So there are 5 cloud characteristics that are defined in the NIST definition of cloud computing that they have given in 2011. And that is what I will be discussing right now. So they were mainly the on-demand self-service, then broad network. So on-demand, we have already talked about that, provisioning the IT resources at any time. And self-service is that we have an interface through which we can communicate with the cloud service provider. And then without any human intervention, we can just provision the resources. So that's all automatic. So next we have broad network access is we will talk about this, and then we have the resource pooling. So then we have the rapid elasticity and major service. So these are the 5 key attributes or the characteristics. So we will discuss each of these one by one. So on-demand self-service. So as we have talked earlier that it just mean that actually just one terminology more you just if any of you is not familiar, then there is a terminology called cloud service provider, that is the cloud provider, and the cloud consumer. So cloud provider is that entity that owns a cloud. So and just like example is AWS, Azure, Google Cloud Platform. So these are the examples, most prominent ones, and that is the cloud provider. So those who are providing the cloud service. So and the cloud consumer is that entity or a human or organization, anyone that uses the cloud service from the cloud service provider. So these are basically very simple terms. So let's get back to the on-demand self-service. So this is the first characteristics, and it means basically that a cloud consumer is able to, that is, we are actually discussing the characteristic that a cloud should have to be a, so that we can call that cloud as effective cloud. Okay. So we are right now talking about the cloud from a cloud server, cloud provider perspective or regarding that part. So it means that a cloud consumer must be able to provision the IT resources through an interface, and that interface should be automated, just like we have the web portal we discussed, web console, mobile application it may be, or a command line interface, so SDKs as well, and etc. So we don't have to talk to any of the salesperson or the middleman in between. So everything is on demand. So this feature, if this feature is provided by a CSP, cloud service provider, then the cloud consumer gets the freedom to provision the IT resources by self. And so this is meant by on-demand self-service, that you are able to provision the cloud-based IT resources at any time without contacting any of the humans. So actually, one thing more to this is that we are talking about provisioning the cloud resources, but another term is deprovisioning, just like or we can say releasing. So it means that if we have to release any cloud resources, we can release that as well or cancel the subscription. In other words, and at any time. That also should be on demand. Then this is the first key attribute of a good cloud service. And let's see the next one. Difference between server and cloud. Okay, we will take this question at the end. So basically, next one is the broad network access. And regarding the cloud, I can tell right now that okay, let's resolve this doubt right now. So first of all, I have been talking about IT resource. So IT resource may be any physical or uh, any virtual IT artifact. That's the definition I have read in the book that I have provided to you. So IT resource and the most common types of the IT resource is the server. Then you have the storage devices, then you have the network devices, and then you have the services like Gmail is also a IT resource. So and so this is IT resource, and then comes the server. Like if we are talking about server from a data center perspective, then we can say that there is a physical server, that is a physical machine. To that physical machine, we are referring as server right now. Okay, and on that physical machine, simply the operations or the your softwares are going to run, and there are different types of servers as well. That is the software servers like web server, application servers are there, mail servers are there, file servers, and such servers are there. So these are the software that you can install. But physical server, whenever we talk about physical server, just think of a physical device or a machine. And we so to remove this ambiguity, we call it as a bare metal server. So in few cloud service providers, we had this offering of bare metal as well. And the Oracle Cloud Infrastructure was the first who initiated this offering. So that is the server part, and the cloud, as we have already discussed, what is cloud computing. But cloud and on-prem, I am not discussing right now. I thought to discuss in session 2, but let's give a quick overview. Just wait a minute. So cloud is basically an IT environment, and that is basically what the cloud, what we mean when we say the cloud term, and what we mean when we say on-prem. So when we say on-prem, that on-prem simply means that all the IT resources that are within that organization or the company that are being used on the site by the employees or anyone that is present there. But whenever we call that as cloud, so there has to be uh, some these cloud characteristics. This has to be fulfilled, as well as one thing just for a quick uh, overview that these IT resources should be remotely accessible. So if you are able to uh, set up this kind of setup in your data center, and your employees can provision the IT resources from a remote location, then you can say that your organization is having a on-prem environment as well as a cloud environment. If you have provision few cloud-based IT resources to act like that. So for now, I think that would be enough, and we can move on the broad network access. Is cloud owner able to view my data on any cloud? Okay, so actually, that's why there we will talk about this in the next session about the risk and challenges of cloud. But they can, but they don't, because they have to actually do the business. And if they do this kind of thing, then why are they providing the cloud services? Their main aim was to provide the service and increase their business values and gain the profit, revenue. So they would not do that. And there are various techniques that a customer should have the responsibility as well to encrypt their data. And cloud provider also encrypts the data, but customers should also encrypt their data if they are storing it on the cloud. So if you have a strong encryption, then no one can see that part if you don't provide the keys. So next is the broad network access. So broad network access means that a cloud service is accessible widely. And just like we have talked about remote, that it can be accessed from a remote location. That's exactly it means that if as long as you have the network connectivity, you are able to provision the IT resources. So that's exactly the broad network access that. And one thing more is that this provisioning should be enabled on multiple devices or various platforms, so that if user is using a mobile phone or a tablet or a laptop, they are able to provision the IT resources. So cloud providers should ensure that they build that platform for various devices as well. And so to wrap up this, it means basically as long as you, the cloud consumer, has a network connectivity like broadband or a Wi-Fi, you can provision or utilize the cloud service. There is no no location dependency for any cloud service. So that's about the broad network access. Next characteristic is the resource pooling, and this is very much important. So whenever we talk about resource pooling, we have to know what is multi-tenant. And when we have to know about multi-tenant, we have to know what is virtualization and hypervisor. So hypervisor, starting with hypervisor is basically a piece of software or a firmware that creates and run a virtual machine. So there are two types of hypervisor as well. There are type 1 hypervisor, which provides a hardware virtualization that it can virtualize a physical resource like CPU, storage, memory, networking, this kind of thing. And there is type 2 hypervisor that provides OS level virtualization. So some of the examples of the type 1 hypervisor would be, if you have heard Hyper-V from Microsoft, this is one of the example, and the most popular is the ESXi from VMware and Gen Server from Citrix. And this Gen Server hypervisor is being used by AWS data centers personnel. And type 2 hypervisor example would be VMware Workstation and Oracle VirtualBox, and many others are there as well. So hypervisor is just basically a software or firmware. So now what a virtualization actually is. So virtualization is, as I have said earlier, that the splitting of physical resource into multiple logical units or logical resource. But one thing to keep in mind is that whenever we are doing so, the main functionality of a physical resource, the core functionality should be the same. So let's take an example from the past 1 year. You can see the students are attending the classes online, which was earlier used to be offline in any physical classroom, right? So here the classroom is being virtualized now, but the common functionality remains the same, that is to teach or to impart learning or educate the people. So the functionality is same, but the classroom is virtualized. So we have the online learning. And more specifically regarding the virtual machines, let's take an example. If you have your PC and you downloaded one of the type 2 hypervisors like VMware Workstation. And then after downloading that, you created two virtual machines on your own laptop. Now, the core functionality was earlier, your laptop was to just, if it was a personal computer, so it would behave or work like that. So after the virtual machine creation, you have two virtual machines as well. So this would also perform the same functionalities. And if you have installed that right operating systems on them, so you do the same thing on a virtual machine as you do on the physical one. So this is a typical example, and let's come to the multi-tenancy part. So what is a multi-tenant? What is a single tenant? Single tenant I have discussed already in the section 2 about the dedicated hosting. So now I can discuss about the multi-tenancy. So let's take the previous example. Like you have your laptop, you created two VMs. Now, if you are the owner of, if you want to start renting those virtual machines to other people or customers, you can do so. So whenever two different customer provision or rent that to separate each separate virtual machines on your system, we can call them as tenants. And since they are different customers, we will call this as a multi-tenancy model. So tenants, as you know, it is just an entity who occupies any property, just like you have house rental type agreements. So tenants is just like that only, because they are the customer and they are using the resources of your system, and that too on a rent purpose. So here in the last example, you had two tenants and which each has occupied a VM and running their own workloads, but the physical hardware is yours. So this is a multi-tenancy model example. Now let's come to the resource pooling part. So for that, let's take an example. The typical example would be of the storage virtualization. So if you have used an Android device somewhere and inserted a new SD card in it, then many times it prompts, sorry, the first time it prompts you that whether you want to use this external SD card as a portable device that is selected by default, or you can use it as an internal device or internal storage. So you have to make a choice. So what if we selected use as internal device? So that is exactly the resource pooling is happening there. So let's say take an example. Mm, let's take an example of file storage first of all. Like you have a 8 GB of internal storage in your phone, and you have to save a single file of size 9 GB, that is just more than 8 GB. Let's take 9 GB. And so you can't be able to save that file because the maximum storage size is 8 GB. But you thought that let's just insert an SD card and then your storage will be 8 plus 8, 16 GB. You would be able to store that single file. But let me tell you that this would not happen. And because these both are separate physical units and their maximum, let's take the external SD card size also as 8 GB. So both are 8 GB. Total they are 16, but they are separate physical units. And so the maximum storage size is 8 GB only. You can't able to save 9 GB or 10 GB single file. But if you pool these two storage devices using that format as internal button that is prompts you, and these two resources will be pulled together, that is combined together. Two physical resources will be combined together as a logical unit. And now you have the 16 GB as the maximum size. And now you can store even 15 gigabytes of a single file in your phone, just because you have pooled these resources. And that's regarding the resource pooling part. And oh, One thing more is there is nothing like where this earlier you were not able to store a 9 GB file, now you are able to store 15 GB file. So there is no magic, just resources are being pooled. That's where the technology has evolved, and the your data is going to store in both your memory card as well as phone internal storage only. And if you remove the SD card, the data will get corrupted. So don't do that if you are resource pooling. So this was an example of resource pooling. I hope you have got it. And now let's combine the examples of virtualization and resource pooling together and again see the multi-tenancy model. So uh, if you have earlier you have a single physical laptop and you are providing the services. Now what you can do is you can configure and pool multiple, let's say 5 laptops or 5 physical devices together, and after pooling you have your physical configuration increase, and then you can serve even more multiple customers. So what's the benefit actually? And this is also multi-tenancy, but benefit here is that just like take an example of SD card only. If you are going to purchase a 8 GB SD card and a 16 GB SD card, so you can see clearly that there is not the pricing is not double. That a 16 GB card is not as double price as 8 GB. It's a little bit lesser only. So you can imagine at such a large scale, if you have the data center, how much profit you can gain using this resource pooling and then renting those resources to customers. So this is about the multi-tenancy and what's and the last part I think I told regarding the data part. Your cloud owner cannot see your data. And in this multi-tenancy also, you might have, if you have thought like, go like, what if another user is able to see my data? So that's why we use better software, better hypervisor, and we have to trust the cloud service provider that they are not interfering in between. So we will see this risk and challenges part in the next session. And and users also have the responsibility to care about their data. It's not the responsibility of cloud service provider. They will do their basic encryption to all the data, but users should also do that from their end. So next we have fourth characteristic, that is the rapid elasticity. So to understand this, let's first understand the term scaling that we have talked about earlier. So if we take or we think from an IT resource perspective, scaling means the ability of that IT resource to uh, handle the task based on the user's demand. So that IT resource can uh, scale up or scale down according to the demand, that is the threshold or anything that we define. So there are two types of scaling basically. First one is the horizontal scaling. Second one is the vertical scaling. So horizontal scaling we will take first. So it is also classified into two types. First one is the scaling up and another one is the scaling down. So as the name suggests, so horizontal scaling is divided into two types, scaling out and scaling in, and vertical scaling is classified into two types, scaling up and scaling down. So let's take horizontal scaling. So as the name suggests, scaling out means expanding kind of intuition you can get. So it is the allocation part. So you are allocating more resources into the current existing resources what you have. And scaling in just opposite, that you are releasing the resources back to the cloud service provider. So one thing you have to note here in the horizontal scaling is that the resource which are getting to be added up, has to be the same type. Like there is, uh, you have a laptop and you have a 4 GB of RAM. So if you have to scale horizontally, then you have to add the same configuration of 4 GB uh, in whatever quantity you want, like 4 plus 4 plus 4 infinite times. But it has to be 4 only. So that is the one thing you have to keep in mind. The next is the vertical scaling, that is scaling up and scaling down. So vertical scaling is just replacement. Just we talk about an example of graph. If you have switched your job from to the graphic designing, you need to upgrade your configuration of the system. So you purchase a new laptop. Similar thing happens if you wish to upgrade the system. There are certain parameters that you can't scale out, so you need to upgrade those. So in that case, vertical scaling, you have to do the vertical scaling, that you have to provision a new instance and then do all the things there. So the previous instance will be replaced by the newer one. And one thing here is that the this vertical scaling, this provisioning will, or copying the data from the previous one to the next one would take time, and that's why it occurs or it comes with a downtime. And while the horizontal scaling will just occur in seconds, so that's a benefit, and that's why horizontal scaling is more prominent in the cloud environment. And regarding the vertical scaling up and scaling down, you might have got the intuition that is scaling up is upgradation and scaling down is downgradation from the existing configuration. So now let's talk about elasticity. So elasticity is just like a scaling, just it had an additional ability to automatically scale. So when let's say you have the 4 gigabits of RAM on your laptop and you wish to scale it. So you added 4 GB again, so you have 8 GB now. But what if you are running a live server on your system and suddenly the utilization of the resources just increases due to high traffic? So your server will crash definitely. So you can't go to the shop. Even you go to the shop, you will take uh, much time come to purchase the hardware and then open your laptop and then configure those, that is set up those, and then use it. But uh, and in that course of time, your business would have to face a loss. Exactly. So that's why elasticity is a very popular or a prominent feature of cloud. It gives you an automated ability to scale. So you just define a threshold, like you define that after 75% CPU utilization from my existing configuration, if the 75% threshold, the current utilization increases above 75%, then configure a same instance, that is scale out one instance. So this way you can set up the policies and it will scale automatically. You don't have to see 24/7. It is a service that is being provided by the cloud service provider, and that is elasticity. You just define the runtime conditions. And so another thing is that elasticity, like let's say your traffic has increased for just 1 hour. You have a sale like a big billion days sale type of thing. So you have to scale it. For one day, you can go and configure and scale the resources manually as well. But if you have set the policies to scale automatically, then as the demand increase, the resources would be added, allocated, and as the demand will decrease, the resources will be deprovisioned. So that's the power of elasticity in the cloud. And so I hope you have got it. So the last characteristic is the major service, or major uses that we have talked earlier as well, that CSPs has to monitor what resources you are using so that they can charge you a bill. So it is basically CSP has to set up or configure from their end that uh, they have to track all the uses of the IT resources that they are giving to their customers. And based on what is measured, they charge the cloud customer or the consumers, and that is on the pay-as-you-go model. So whatever they are using, they will pay only for that. Like, let's take an example just of the previous sale. Like you have a big billion days type of sale, and you know that traffic is going to hike 10 times. So in a typical IT environment, what would you do? You would just go to the shop and purchase, let's say, 10 new physical machines, just like the previous one, and then set up. So your sale has gone very well, and you earned a very much profit from there. Your server did not fail. But what after that one day? Your all those new resources would be underutilized, would not be utilized after that. So that was the problem uh, with the traditional IT, and that's where pay-as-you-go comes in, and we have the auto scaling feature and the scaling. So we have already seen it will scale automatically, and we have to pay only for the time these resources are being provisioned. Like for one day, we will have to pay the charges per hour, this kind of thing. And so there is no underutilization of IT resources. And so these are the five key characteristics for cloud computing. And so these characteristics needs to be addressed by the CSPs so that it can be considered as an effective cloud. So I think that's wrap up for this third part. If you have doubt with the cloud characteristics, you can post in the chat box, or we will wait 1 minute and then we will move to the last part of the session. I think there is no doubt for now. Don't worry. There will be a query section at the end as well. So we can have a discussion that time as well if you are facing any doubt. So let's see the last part, that is the needs, necessities, and the advantages. So first is the costing perspective. We have already get the intuition how much cost effective this cloud environment with respect to the traditional ITs. So in a typical IT environment, what the data structure admins or the company have to do, they have to first of all acquire all the IT resources. They have to rent the buildings where they have to put all the physical resources. They have to hire the professionals so that they can first of all configure, and then additionally to operate this and maintain this. So there were various operational costs as well as capital expenses, and capital expenses is abbreviated as capex, and operational expenses, that is opex. So there are various capex and opex associated with the traditional IT environment, which can be reduced to a very large extent if the same company had used the cloud service. So because they don't have to purchase anything here, and so they can even provision the resources as per the need and deprovision it. They don't have to care about any of the software updates or the operational cost, maintenance cost, even the headache they have, all things is gone from the customer and is being managed by the CSPs. So we will also see in the next session about the service model. So we will discuss about the responsibilities of a consumer and a provider. So another thing to this costing perspective is that there may be various companies or the startups who don't have that much assets or money to invest or invest in an on-premise data structure, data center. So what they can do is they can simply go for a cloud service, and this is the cheapest and the best alternative and the solution for them. And even now, the cloud computing is actually most of the industry has shifted to the cloud computing only, and those who have the privacy concern, they are still operating in their IT, but it has shifted to cloud. So the next, we have benefits from massive economies of scale. So remember, we have talked about multi-tenancy model. So there we have talked about resource pooling as well as virtualization, and see how the cost could be drastically or the expenses could be reduced. So that's because there are various customers and CSP is very large. Then like when we are using the cloud computing services, so there may be millions of customers or even thousands of customers who are taking the service from the same CSP. And so the cost would be shared among them, and they would have to pay lesser than what they would have to pay if they configure all these things in their on-prem. So we have also seen in the shared hosting and cloud hosting part that how cloud hosting has drastically reduced the expenses or the cost. So that's the second benefit. And next is easy to use. So cloud computing is very easy to use. We have the interface just as simple as the web browser. We can go to, like for the AWS, we can go to aws.amazon.com, and you can visit and explore that section. And that is basically a web portal for using the cloud resources from AWS. Similarly, we have for Azure, GCP, OCI, and various cloud providers. So it's very easy to use, and we don't have to care much about that. Cloud providers has provided a better interface and a platform so that customer can interact with their cloud resources. So next we have one thing that is caching capacity. So what happens in typical IT resources, like you have to, before purchasing any IT resource, you have to gauge the capacity, like how much capacity do you actually need for this workload. Even if you are purchasing any laptop or setting up a desktop, you have to guess the capacity, like how much you would require. So that's a very simple example, but on a company scale, that's a very important factor that comes into play, and they have to think of it beforehand. So this, due to cloud computing, they don't have to guess in the infrastructure capacity needs, and which the traditional IDs follow. And because there is scaling feature, scaling characteristics of the cloud, as well as elasticity, we have a very easy to use interface. With just a mouse click, we can configure all the resources, and thus we also have the pay-as-you-go pricing model. So the cloud is a one-stop solution for this, and we don't have to guess for any more capacity from now. And next we have boosting the demand. This is also similar to a scaling feature, as well as the scaling. I would say that if the demand is increasing, We can scale the resources, IT resources according to that, and even we have the auto scaling feature, that is the elasticity. So that's a very big point in any business, that they are getting the scaling and elasticity at uh, such easily, we can say. So another one is the improved performance, availability, backup and disaster recovery, and service levels of the cloud. Actually, these are the terms we would be seeing in tomorrow's session, but due to cloud computing, the performance has also been improved. Availability, what availability is, like how much time your service is available to your users, and backup and disaster recovery. This is also very important. And service levels are like the service levels agreements, SLAs, if you have heard about. So there are SLAs as well. So if cloud service provider does not meet the SLA, that is the agreement with you in providing the service, they will repay you that they have not met that demand. Like there is a data center failure, so your web application got shut down, and along with the other customer as well. And let's say for a 1 day, so they have some percentages listed up on the agreement beforehand, and if they meet or does not meet the percentages within the specified time, usually that's a year, so they will give you money back. So that's a very important advantage as well. And these three are the another most important advantage, that is the location independence factor. We have talked about broad network access, that we can configure and provision the resources as long as we have the network connectivity. We have the network access, we can do so. So all is all is location independent, and as well as device independence nowadays, and hence the access is very broad. And next is the global scale of cloud computing. So you can imagine, like if you are setting up a typical IT infra on your on-prem, and you are in a city like Delhi or Hyderabad. So you are providing the services to your users from that data center. That will be okay for users of India and neighboring countries. But the users who are accessing it from a very large location, they will face issues of latency. And so what you can do is you can just you leverage the cloud service. There are multiple regions in different cloud providers. AWS very extensive, and AWS is very extensive, and they have various regions around the world. And so you can go to that region and you just provision the resources in that region's data center. That is, in AWS terms, data center is called availability zone, AZ. So in that AZ, you can just provision your resources, and so your client won't be unhappy with the latency. So, and this is about the global scale of cloud computing. You can go global within minutes. And the last one is the accelerating the business value. So we have seen that in traditional IT environment, if we have to configure, then we have to also see various operational overheads as well as maintain the servers. And we are actually giving or spending more time and money to configure and operate and maintain these infrastructures. And thus we can actually put those responsibility to the CSP, and we can use those resources, your human resources as well as your time and money, if we go with the cloud. And cloud, and another advantage is that the company can now focus on their application or the core service more rather than maintaining and operating these infrastructures. And so they can experiment more of the product, and overall their product will be released in much lesser time, and it will be very convenient for them as well. And Another thing is that we have various services in the cloud, like let's say you have to route your web application. You have a web application. You want that web application in. You have two domains like development environment and production, and you want the development, that is the beta phase, to be specific to some part of the country or the region, so you can do that so as well. So you have got the flexibility in testing your product in the market. So I think that's a wrap up for the section 4, needs, necessity, and advantages. Now, thank you everyone for joining this session. We will take the questions now.